Hi there, I'm Michelle the painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Cherry Blossom Blue Jay, and I'm going to be sipping on my coffee. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, magenta, cobalt blue, fire red, deep yellow, burnt umber, which I'll call brown, and Mars black. And of course you can switch up those colors too if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 6 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 0 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. Of course, you can switch those up too if you'd like to. And if you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you through your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same kind of paint and all the good stuff in between. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can use that, or you can print it and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to be doing for the first step is we're painting our background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are blue, white, magenta, yellow, and brown. So these are going to be the majority of the colors that are within the painting. It's meant to be just an out of focus sky and out of focus foliage and all that good stuff, just complementary colors to the whole painting. So I'm going to be applying my paint in a circular motion with the tip of my brush. This is going to allow me to kind of get these colors to blend in with one another and just look out of focus. So I'm starting with white and a touch of blue on my brush at the same time. And I'm going to start over here on the left hand side, and you can get yours to be as light or as dark or as airy feeling as you want. I am just going for mine to look nice and kind of out of focus. I'm going to put a good amount of blue and white in the majority of the background, or maybe about like half of the background, and then I'm going to put some of the other colors that are going to be representational of my out of focus trees, of my cherry blossom tree that is making its way into the painting as a beautiful accent. So I will be utilizing those colors as well, and I'm just using the tip of my brush to get these colors to intermingle with one another. I haven't picked up any other colors other than the blue and white for now, so this way I can just kind of get some nice areas where maybe the sky is just poking through, the beautiful blossoming trees that are going to be out of focus in the background. And you can see how as I'm doing this, I'm leaving the edges of these blue sections nice and soft, so that way when I go to add the other colors, I'll be able to kind of intermingle them without having these firm lines around the edges of those sections of color. And I'm going to get mine to go lighter and lighter as it goes up in this left-hand corner. I might add some of the other colors up here as well in a little bit, but right now I'm just kind of getting a nice base coat on here so I can have the insinuation of maybe some clouds floating by or a nice bright spot up in the sky somewhere. And then once I feel like I've got enough of the blue section of the sky on here, now I'm going to start intermingling my other colors. So I'm going to start with a little bit of white and my magenta on my brush, and then I'll be introducing brown and yellow as additional colors as I go through this process. So I've got magenta and white on my brush right now, and now I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown and white. And you can really get this to be as vibrant as you want or as subtle as you want. I'm going for a little bit of brown and yellow as I go in through here. So this will be representational of maybe some of the trees that are, you know, around the back of it or something. And as I get up towards where my sky is, I'm just going to kind of overlap those colors so they start talking to one another and really looking nice and out of focus. And you can bounce around your sky as much as you want to. I just picked up some more magenta and white. I'm not washing my brush, but I am very cautious about the amount of paint that I have on my brush because I want these colors to intermingle, but I don't want them to all necessarily blend in with one another or turn into one solid color. So this little bristle is driving me crazy. It keeps landing back on my canvas. So I want them to blend, but I don't want them to all turn into one solid color. So that way, so what I'm doing is just kind of controlling the amount of paint that I have on my brush. So I've got purple, and I think I'm going to do a little blue too, purple, brown, or magenta, brown, and blue. I might call magenta purple quite often here. I don't mean to, but I might. So if I call out purple, I really mean magenta. So right now I have magenta, brown, and blue on my brush at the same time. I'm just going to do a nice kind of darker area up and through here. And again, maybe you want yours to have a lot of that magenta on it. Maybe you just want yours to have a little bit. It's totally up to you. This is meant to just be kind of a nice out of focus representation of whatever those surrounding trees would be. So totally up to you. I just put a little bit more yellow on my brush, and I'm just kind of floating around. I'm going to use a little white to intermingle these colors together. And if you ever find that everything is just muddling together and it's all turning into one solid color, it's probably time to wash your brush. Usually that's a good indicator that you've worked these colors too much together or you have too much paint on your brush. So typically when that happens, just wash and dry your brush and then just come back into whatever section that you'd want to and redo it, or just let it dry for a minute. Sometimes that'll help work you through some of this blending process. I know that sometimes when we're working with multiple colors on our brush and we're just kind of overlapping them and trying to get them to look like they are merging together but not overdoing one another, sometimes they might just end up looking like it's all just one muddled mess. And that's all right, you know, just like I said, let it dry and then you can come back in with another layer on top of it and make your spots lighter or darker. And you can certainly add or subtract to it once it dries. I'm going to get down here to be the darkest of my whole area. So I just picked up some brown, yellow, and magenta. And I'm really at this point just kind of alternating these colors: brown, magenta, yellow, white, blue. So you can certainly do the same. The yellow is going to make that magenta more on the kind of a mauve type of color as opposed to a soft pink. So you can certainly get yours into whatever tonal value that you want, but if you want it to be a little bit more on the darker, richer side, adding a touch of that yellow into it would certainly help to accomplish that, or a little bit of sunshine into it. Adding a touch of that yellow helps to do that. But again, I'm just going for an out of focus appearance, so I don't really need it to be anything distinct. I just want it to all look like it makes sense together, and that these are going to end up being complementary colors to what I have on the whole painting. So I'm going to have a big cherry blossom branch coming in this left hand side, so I'm just imagining this to maybe be another cherry blossom tree that's just way off in the distance and out of focus. And then I'm just going to kind of keep fiddling with mine, which you can certainly do the same with yours. And again, you can, you know, let it dry for a minute, just kind of keep adding your layers until you feel that you've got the entire area the way that you want. I might end up tweaking mine a bit more, but once you feel like you've got it all set and you're ready to rock and roll, we are actually going to be utilizing, let's see, what are we going to do for our next step? I think we'll utilize our pencil for the next step. So once you've got this all on here, you can see I'm just kind of fiddling around my edges in through here. You can put your large brush away, take out your pencil, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're drawing an outline of our bird. I'm going to be using my pencil, and I do want to kind of suggest or recommend that you have your canvas dry before the step. It does make it a lot easier to draw on a dry surface. So, you know, you can take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find a fun fanning method with your paper towel or your mouth, or you can do as I did and just whip out your blow dryer and get it dry that way. So once you've got your canvas surface dry, I'm going to be using my pencil to guide you through a simple outline of the bird. We will be doing all of the details later. This is just going to give us a basic outline from which to build upon. So when I'm teaching birds, I usually like to instruct you that you can start all birds with two basic shapes, a circle for the head and an egg for the body. So this can hold true with a flamingo or a hawk or a penguin. You can always utilize that circle for the start of the head and then the egg for the body, with the pointy part of the egg being where the tail is. They all have different length necks and different kind of beaks and different wings and different tail feathers and all that good stuff, but we can start them with these two basic shapes. So that's how we're starting this one. We're going to start with our circle for the head. So this is going to be a really large bird. It's going to take up the majority of the canvas. So I'm going to have my circle be in this vicinity over here. So if this is about halfway in your canvas, left to right, I'm down, I would say about a third of the way down my canvas, and I'm over maybe about 2 or 3 inches. That's where I'm going to start the top of my circle. And my circle is only going to be about 2 inches by 2 inches. So you can just kind of come down about 2 inches, and that'll be the top and the bottom. And then I'm just going to make myself a circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. This is just something that's going to start the shape of the head, so we can certainly build it from there. So that's going to be my circle kind of shape. I'm going to have my beak coming out in through this direction. So I'm maybe a little bit below my halfway point of my circle here, and then I'm coming out maybe about 3/4 of an inch. That's going to be the tip of my beak. These are pretty long beaks compared to the body itself or the size of the head itself. I'm just going to bring this back in through here like this, and it will work its way into the whole shape of the head in a minute. And then I'm going to bring this one up in through here. And we certainly are going to be doing much more detail onto them, so if you need to adjust the size of your beak later, that will be fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the egg of my body. So my bird's wings are going to be out like this. So the main part of the body is going to be in through here. So this is going to be where my egg shape is. My tail is going to be back in through here. So I'm making my body, or my egg, is going to be, I would say, 2 or 3 times the length of your circle part of your head, and it's in this direction going here. So if I measure my head, I can go 1, 2, maybe a little bit more than that, and then make myself a little marker. That's going to be the bottom or the pointy part of my egg. I'm going to start my egg right where it meets the head in through here. It's going to end up being a little bit wider than the main circle itself. So something like this. And then I'm just going to kind of come down in through here. And again, yours doesn't have to be exactly as mine. And then I'm going to make the bottom part of the egg coming in through here. So something, so it kind of looks like a teardrop in a sense. So teardrop / egg is going to be the shape of my body. And then I'm going to make my tail. So my tail, I've got the end of my tail right about here. So this is about a little bit longer than your whole body. So you can take, you know, shy of your whole body, just a little bit, measure it, and then kind of come out. This will be the tip of my tail in through here. I'm going to come up the sides of this egg, I would say about 2 inches up each side, and I'm going to come out at like a little bit of an angle. This is going to splay out because this tail is really, really wide, and it is wide at the end and goes more narrow in there. So I'm going to bring this out in about a horizontal kind of line in through here. Wherever this is, I want to come just past it. So I'm going to bring it straight out like this and come just past it, just a little bit. And then I'm going to connect here to here with just an arcing kind of line. We'll be putting the detail on it later. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here, but where this is going to end, it's going to end farther down than here. So you're going to come down maybe about an inch or two, and you're going to come over just shy of this marker in through here. So somewhere about here is how far where I'm going to bring this one, and then I'm going to just kind of connect these two, and it doesn't have to be exactly at the same angle as the other one, and then I'm just going to connect these two like this. Then I got to put my 2 wings on. So we're doing just a basic shape. We'll put the detail on the edges of the wings later. So this one in through here, I'm going to have the tip of it coming right about in through here. I might change to a white pencil in a minute so you guys can see this a little bit easier. So this is maybe about 3.5 inches from the edge of my canvas and about 3.5 inches up from the bottom. I'm going to connect it to this point right in through here with a curving type of motion, something like this. And then what I'm going to do, and you can see I'm not doing it perfect, just something that's going to give me a good shape. And then I'm going to connect the top to my neck area in through here. So right about as this curves down just a little bit, you can take this. I'm going to give it a little bit of an arc in through here. So that's going to show the form of the structure to the wing. And then I'm going to bring it like this and then just curve it a little bit on that edge. I need to connect the head to the main body in through here. So I'm going to take this from the farthest part out of the circle in through here and then just connect it in through here. So this gives us a nice entry point into that wing. My other wing, I'm going to start, if you just kind of come directly over from here like this, this will be where I start the other wing. Again, it's going to meet down in this intersecting point, and then the tip of my wing is going to be somewhere about in through here. So I'm going to do the same thought process. I'm going to bring this kind of out like this, give it a little bit of a bump, not much, just a little tiny bump in through there, and then bring it out over in through here to meet this tip like this, and then I'm going to bring it back around to meet this one in through here. So this can have a little bit of a wave to it or a little bit of a bump to it. And that is all we're going to be doing for our outline. Oh, I need to connect the neck. Hold on a second. Connect this neck to here, in through here. Sorry about that. I always think I have it all, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, but you missed this one major part. So connect those two to there, and then we'll put all the other little details on in a little bit. So we're going to use our medium brush for the next step, so you can put your pencil away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the base coat for our bird. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and I'm going to be using just blue paint. So I'm going to talk you through the tricky parts first, which are extending some certain areas to give a little bit more detail on the wings and on the tail and on the head. And then we're just going to color in the middle in blue. So as we go through this process, you will most likely continue to see your pencil marks underneath your paint. Don't worry about that because we have plenty of layers to go that will definitely cover up your pencil marks. So the first part I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my head, and the only addition that I need to do to the head is put the crown, or I think that's what it's called, the hair at the top of the head, or the feathers that come off the top of the head. I'm going to extend this out directly from the top, and I'm really just bringing out a few little pieces of the feathers going out in that direction in through there. I'm doing this in a manual process without doing it with my pencil because I want to be able to see through the tips of those feathers. And then you just kind of proceed slowly through that beak. And I'm going to skip around in a minute once I get this beak done, but I'm concentrating right now on my pointy beak. So hold on one second while I get this part done. And then once we've got the, I think I'll just color the whole head while I'm here. And then we'll move on to our wings in a second here. So the wings, I want these feathers on the wings to extend and look open, especially on the top of them. So that's why when we did the outline, I had you cut it kind of short. So when we go to do the exterior wings, it's going to provide us with these little peekaboo spots through the tips of the wings. So I'm going to show you where I have my farthest ones out and then how I will connect the rest to the middle of it. So on this particular wing, I have my farthest wing. It comes way up in through here. So I'm just kind of maybe about 2.5 inches away from there. And then when I bring it in towards the actual wing, I push my brush a little bit harder, and that's going to give me a little bit thicker of a feather as it comes in towards the body of the wing itself. I'm just going to do maybe 2 or 3 on this upper side in through here, and I'm going to get them to be a little bit smaller as it comes closer in towards the top of the wing, something like that. And then as I come around this side of it, right about, I would say, in through this area, in through here, this is where it's just going to be a bunch of bumps coming down to meet here. But from here up to here, I want there to be a progression of these wings, or the tips of the wings that just kind of meet in with this point. So I'm going to do one in through here, and then I'll do maybe a little bit wider of one. As they come down, I'll get them a little bit progressively wider until they kind of meet in with this one in through here. And then what I'll do is and of course I'm bringing them at least to that pencil mark. And then at the bottom here, what I'm going to do is just make a whole bunch of bumps like this. Something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over on the right hand side. So my farthest wing out is going to be somewhere in through here. And this is going to connect in kind of a curved manner to the top of the wing in through here. And I'm just going to have maybe one more, maybe a little shorter one coming out in through here. And then again, on this side, it starts turning into the curved ones, or just the bumps. I would say right about in through here. So from here to here, that's where I'm going to progressively get it to go shorter and shorter and thicker as it comes towards this this bump that I've just created. And you can have as many wings or as many little feather tips as you want. These birds are just so beautiful. They just have the most beautiful colors and feathers, and they're just a beautiful creature, and they're very native to where I live, so I see them a lot. They reside right on my deck all summer long, and in the springtime too. And then once I've got that part done, I'm just going to make myself, and I'm going to try and keep these bumps in similar sizes as those. And if you feel like you want to extend it a little bit past your pencil mark, feel free to do so. So, oops, that bump didn't work out very well, so there we go. Mine's going to naturally get extended because my bump making was not the best. And we're just going to make these bumps in through here. Perfect. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the exterior of the tail in through here. So I'm going to kind of split the difference. Maybe somewhere in the center is going to be my center bump like this. And then I'm just going to make bumps going all the way down. So maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 on either side of that center one. Something like this. And of course, yours doesn't have to have exactly the same number as mine does. Yours might have more or less, or it does, I think you would naturally want to have a similar number on each side. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Well, maybe we're going to have like 4.5, or we're just going to extend this a little bit. There we go. And then we're just going to color the whole thing in with blue. So once you've got those exterior markers, you could even, if you wanted to, you could switch to a larger brush if that works for you. I'm just going to do mine with my medium brush. I am doing a pretty heavy layer of blue paint. I'm not doing any special brush stroke, but I am just making sure that I got the entire area covered. Again, I know that we're going to be doing lots and lots of details on this later, but this definitely helps to provide us with a wonderful base coat. Even there's areas on the bird that are going to be white, but we may not paint that area 100%. So the blue is going to act as a great complementary side color to it and just add to the authenticity of these beautiful blue jays. They are just, you know, one of the most beautiful birds with all of their colors. They don't necessarily have the best personality reputation, but I live in a place where there's lots of nature, and before I moved here, I was not around a lot of nature all the time, but I was hearing these fables of how blue jays were very aggressive birds, and I'm not finding that to be. I'm finding that, you know, they like to stick together and they like to kind of be with their own flock. They don't really hang out with any other birds, you know, in a fun way, but they don't seem to be very aggressive, at least not on my deck. They're not very aggressive. They just come and eat when they want to, and then they leave when they want to. So I don't think I think they somehow got a bad rap over the years for being aggressive birds, but they're not in my area. And then once we've got this, your wings and your base coat all painted in, you can see, again, I'm not doing anything special for my brush stroke. I'm just getting the entire bird painted in. We're going to be utilizing this same brush for the next step. So you can just get this all painted in, and then you're definitely going to want to wash and dry this brush before the next step if you're using the same brush like I am, because we're going to be using different colors. So I'm just making sure I get all the way down to the end here. And again, I'm using a good coat. You may, like I said, still see some of your pencil through, but through your paint, but that's going to be all right because you've got lots of stuff to go. And then just wash and dry your brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for the next step is I'm painting the branch for our blossoming tree. So I'm going to be using my small brush, or my medium brush. The colors that I'm using are black and brown. I might use a little white and yellow too, but I'm definitely going to start with black and brown. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to be putting the base branch, or I got two branches going on, in place, and then I'll be branching off after that with little smaller ones. So I'm gonna at all times I'm gonna just keep alternating black and brown. Every time I need to reload, I'll reload with brown one time and then black the next time. And what's gonna happen is I'm gonna have various shades and tones throughout the branch, which will provide some nice natural look to it. So I'm gonna start with black and brown on my brush just to get the party started. And I want these branches to look pretty natural. And for me, all branches are thinner at the tips of them and wider as they get closer to the main tree itself. So I'm going to start them pretty wide over here on the left-hand side and then get them to go thinner and thinner as they get farther away from where the main tree would be over here on the left. So I'm going to make myself a couple of markers. So I've got this one, I would say about halfway up my canvas, and then I have another one maybe about 2.5, maybe even 3 inches below it. So this is going to be my first branch, and this one's going to come way down. This one's going to be scooping way down underneath my bird in through here. So I've just got black and brown. I started with black and brown, and I just picked up brown as my next color just to get this branch started in through here. And then I'm going to show you where I have my next one marked. So my next one is, I would say, about 4 inches, 3 or 4 inches above this one. And it starts right about here, and it's maybe about inch and a half wide in through here. This one's going to be a lot shorter. It's only going to take up this occupy this kind of amount of space in through here. This one I'm going to have going all the way down the bottom of my canvas. So once I've got these two markers in here, I'm just going to kind of start this branch like this, and then maybe this one kind of comes down in through here. So as I'm doing this top one, I'm just thinking it's the end of a much bigger branch, and we're just seeing the little tip of it. So I'm not going to do a whole heck of a lot with this one, but I do want it to have a couple of, you know, pieces coming out where I'm going to have some blossoms coming off of it in a few minutes. So we're just going to give myself some little bits and pieces of it having areas that are just popping out. And so again, I keep alternating the black and the brown on my brush. This is providing me with dark spots and light spots, but I really don't have to worry about it being perfect, because we're going to have a lot of flowers that are going to be encompassing the main area of it. So I'm just getting some kind of shape on there. So I'm going to go ahead and move down to this one, get my big sturdy branch in place in through here, and I'm using a good amount of paint on my brush so I have a nice flow to my paint. I also am using a student grade paint that tends to be very fluid in nature, so that helps me to get these longer paint strokes. But if you're using a thicker bodied paint, you could certainly add a touch of water to your paintbrush, or you can add some little bit of liquid medium or something to get it a little bit flowing, a little bit, you know, more better for you if you want those little pointier tips. But most of these tips that I'm going to be dealing with are going to have the blossom on top of them. So I'm not really concerned about the tips of my branches being perfect. I'm more concerned about just kind of giving myself good placement, so when I do the blossoms in a little while, I've got a lot of good movement and good area to put my blossoms on. And I'm just poking out a couple of branches here and there. Maybe this one's got one coming out in through here, and I'm not making them super straight. I'm definitely giving them some movement on them, which is going to provide some a realistic feel to it, so you can definitely have fun with how you place yours. And if you wanted to put more dimension into your branch, you could certainly use, and I like the way that my branches look, but if you wanted to add a little bit more information to them, you can pick up a little bit of yellow and white, and you could add a bit of a dimensional kind of element to it. So that would add a little bit of highlight here and there, but that's going to be a judgment call on your part. It's not necessary, because again, those blossoms are going to be the star of the branch show. So you don't need to add anything else if you don't want to. And then we're going to switch to our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your branch in place, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting our face. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, white, and blue. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to put the black areas in place first, and then we'll build our details around that. So I'm going to use my small brush. I'm starting with black paint. I'm going to put my eye in place first. So just a little bit of black paint. I have mine marked here so you can kind of see where I'm headed with it. I'm going to be making mine about the size of a small pea. So maybe a 1/4 inch or 1/4 to a 1/2 inch wide and a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch tall. So not very big at all, something like that. Once you have it in there, now we're going to build the markings. I usually call it a mask, but it's not really a mask of sorts. They've got a little bit of a black area coming down in front of the eye and at the bridge of where the beak meets the head. They've got a little bit of black that surrounds this white area that's going to be around the eye. And then they have a little bit of a black area that almost separates like the face from the neck area. So when I do these markings, I'm not going to be doing a clean line. I want to make it like it's going to be entering into the feathers in a little bit. So I'm going to have coming down this right hand corner of this eye in through here, just bring it down just a little bit, and then I'm just going to be moving my brush a little bit in a feathery type of brush stroke, just these little wispy type of brush strokes, bringing it up into this area. You can add a little bit of water to your paint too if you feel as though you may need or want a little bit more fluidity to your paint. And then I'm bringing this black area up a little bit away from the edge of the head in through here. So just a little bit in through here. So there's a little bit of blue left between the black section and the top of the head. And it comes, on my bird anyway, it's going to come almost about straight up from where that eye is itself. And then I'm going to come behind the eye and I'm going to give myself another black section. It's going to come back in through here a little bit, and it's going to end up meeting this the crown area. So I'm going to just give myself these little wispy, feathery type of brush strokes in through this area like this. And then I'm going to do the same thing for an area that kind of separates the face from the neck. So this is going to come from about here, and it's going to end up somewhere down in through this vicinity. And I'm just going to be giving myself these little kind of left to right feathery type of marks coming in through here. What I also noticed was that it dips in a little bit more, where as if it's almost connected to this black marking in the front. So I dip that in just a little bit more. We're going to be putting more feathers on in a second, but this is just kind of getting our areas to be separated out a little bit. So something like that. And then I'm going to work on that beak a little bit while I've got the dark color on my brush. So I'm going to be putting a line kind of down a little bit more towards the bottom part of the beak itself, and then just kind of bringing out a couple more lines in through here. This is going to give me the delineation between the top of the beak and the bottom of the beak. Now that I've got those areas in there, since I'm working on the beak right now and I've got all of my dark areas in place, I'm going to finish my beak. My beak is a dark gray type of color, but I do want there to be some little highlights on it. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pick up some brown, white, and black on my brush at the same time to give myself these darker but varying shades of gray. I'm going to have it a little bit lighter up towards the top, so I picked up a little bit more white on my brush. And I just want it to remain on the darker side. I want it to have a little bit of detail in it. So that's where I'm bringing in a little bit of white streaks just to kind of give a little bit of definition to it. And what I can also do is I can add a touch of blue into it as well. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of blue paint on my dirty brush, and this is going to just give me a little bit more definition, as if there's almost a shiny spot on the beak itself. And I don't want to lose the beak into it being too dark, so if you feel that it is a little bit too dark, you can just lighten up that gray just a little bit by adding a touch of white onto it. But again, it's meant to be pretty darn dark. As I am in this area, I'm going to start working my way up the head and into the area that's going to surround the eye. So the top of the head is going to be a very light color in through here and kind of transition into light blue. And then there's a big white area around the eye itself, but I don't want it to just be white. So I'll be using white and brown and maybe a little bit of gray or a little bit of black to get these little feathery areas. So I'm going to start with just white, and I'm going to put some tiny little feathers coming off of this area that separates this little blackness from the beak itself. And then as I go up the head in through here, I'm going to be utilizing a little bit more white on my brush just to get this area in through here to look like it is nice and bright, and I want it to intermingle with that black area. So if you need to, you just pick back up some of the black just to make sure that it speaks to one another. You want those areas to look like they belong together. And then as I come back towards this crown area, I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue on my brush with the white, so that way it gets a little bit lighter as it goes back in through there. And then as I'm finishing around the face, I'm starting with just white to get this area in place. And all the while, I am using these short brush strokes. I don't ever want to use a lot of paint with a ton of solid paint on it, so I want it to look like feathers. I don't necessarily want it to look like a solid color. And as I'm doing this, I'm painting these little feathers in the direction that I feel that they would be coming off of the face. So I'm going around the eye in through here like this, and then as I come down in through this neck area, I'm just bringing them in the direction that I feel that they would be coming off of the bird. So I feel like a little bit would be coming off in through here. And I don't necessarily need to cover all of that blue, but I do want to make it look like it's transitioning into that black. So I just picked up a little bit of brown and white, and I'll probably pick up a little bit more black in a minute as well. I just really want to get this into a nice full area in through here. I want it to overlap and intermingle with the black section too. So I'm gonna probably pick up a little bit of black now on my brush with the brown and the white to get these two sections to intermingle with one another. And the beautiful part about this is because it is a bird and there's feathers on it, you get to just keep overlapping these feathers until they really get into the realm of where they look like they're intermingling with one another, which is what you want them to inevitably do. I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I want to put that little eye on there now. So I'm going to have blue and white on my brush to start. I'm going to give myself a little tiny colored part of the eye on the front part, just a little kind of curve on that front part of the eye, just to maybe say that it's reflecting the sky or something. And then I just picked up a little bit of white paint on my brush. I'm not bringing the color of the eye all the way to the edge. I kept it in a little bit. And then when I go to do my twinkle, I'm just going to kind of do just a little tiny curve of sorts. And then if I want to or need to, I can just kind of keep adding to the illusion of these feathers by just kind of building them up and making them look as light and bright as we want them. And you might want to, you know, just sit and let it fester for a minute and see if you need to do anything further to it. I might add a little bit more up in through here or on this little spot in front of the beak like this, and I'm just gonna kind of keep tweaking until I feel like I've got all of this in place. This is looking pretty darn good in my opinion. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful bird head or face all nice and complete, you can wash, or actually put your small brush away and take out your medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to be doing for the next step is we're going to be painting the neck, the back, and the shoulders. So I wanted to tackle this all in the same step because they're all really probably the softest looking feathers on the bird, and we don't really need much feather definition when it comes to these areas. So we're really just going to be using a nice soft blending type of effect to get the form or dimension in these areas. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm using my medium brush. The colors I'm using are blue, magenta, white, and maybe a little black if I feel I need it to blend a little bit more. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to make myself, I'm going to call it like a lavendery periwinkle kind of color. So I'm going to use some of my magenta, some of my blue, and add a little bit of white into it. So this is going to act as my highlight color on those shoulders and the neck and the back. And I want it pretty darn light, and I definitely want it on the more lavendery kind of side, but again, nothing ever has to be perfect when it comes to painting. So you could have a couple of different tones to this. You could make it all the same color. It could be a building process as you go through this painting step, but you don't need much of it. So I have my color here. This is what I'm going for. It's just like a light lavendery, periwinkle kind of color. And I'm going to utilize this to kind of set in place my highlight type of areas. So my neck is going to be in through here. So I'm going to have a nice light spot on the back of the bird, somewhere in through here. And it's going to kind of travel. I want it to blend in with those edges. So you can see I'm just kind of utilizing the edge of my brush to get it to blend in. And then what the other areas that I want to have the highlights, and I'm getting soft edges around the sides. So this is going to help me to make it intermingle with what's next to it. I'm going to do another one up in through here. So I'm utilizing that same color. And I'm going to put a highlight up in through here. So what we're doing right now is we are creating the form or the shape of the bird, of these sections of the bird, by adding these strategically placed highlights. And we'll get them to intermingle with the rest of the areas in a minute, or with the neighboring areas in a minute. But this is just kind of getting it started. So this is what I'm calling the shoulder area, which, you know, is probably not the right term. And then I'm just going to kind of get it to blend down in through here. And it doesn't have to be a perfect blend at this point. We're just kind of getting it to blend in. I want to keep this a little bit darker in through here. And then I'm going to add another one of these highlights right in this vicinity in through here. Maybe not quite as intense, but still adding it in through here. And because these paints, the paint that I'm using is a student grade type of paint, it tends to be a little bit more on the translucent side, which I enjoy because I like to build these layers upon layers, and it gives it a more of a natural kind of look to me. So I've got that in place. I also need a highlight or transition from this neck area into the back, but I don't necessarily need to use all this lavender color. I think I'm going to use a little bit more of the white color. So I'm not washing my brush. I'm just picking up a touch of white on my brush to get this area in through here to speak with this, with the black area itself as well. So I'm just kind of using white right now just to get the feathers in motion, I guess, that are kind of intermingling with that area itself. And I'm not using a ton of paint, but I do want there to be this pretty distinct lighter area, so it looks like the sun is coming from over here. And then I need it to transition down into here. So you could use that highlighted color and or some of your blue and white. That will make it also transition in a nice natural way. Your highlights don't just have to be that lavender color. You can utilize your regular blue plus white, which will also give you a sense of a highlight, but maybe not the same tone. Back in through here, I want it to be a little bit darker, indicating that this is the back side of the neck. So I just utilized that a little bit darker of that lavender plus my blue. And then I want this to look like it's transitioning well. So I'm picking up a little bit of black and blue back in through here just to get this almost like a shadow effect back underneath that crown of the feathers. And then I'll just kind of, you know, tweak this as I see fit along this edge, just to make sure that those look like they blend in well with one another. And again, you might have to do little layers of your feathers just to make sure that they're all talking well with one another. It might not just happen on the first go around. You might just have to keep adding those little bits of feathers in through this area. This is probably the most difficult area, just getting these two sections to look like they belong together without overdoing it. Same thing with the front of this area in through here. You just want these to look like they are naturally just kind of overlapping one another, and this is getting a little bit darker as it's coming over towards the back of the bird. I'm probably going to add a little bit more of my blue and white as these colors transition into the main areas of the wings, so that way it will again look nice and natural. We don't just need one solid color in through there, so I'm adding a little bit of my lavender color plus white on my brush. I think I want this to be a little bit brighter in through here. So again, when you're adding form or shape to an object that is seemingly flat on your canvas, if you can progressively do it in layers, and progressively get that color to get lighter and lighter by just using one shade lighter or that original color plus white on your brush. So you can keep, like if I wanted this area to pop out a little bit more, I just used my lavender color plus a little bit of white, and this is getting this area to pop out a little bit more. If I want this to transition into this tail a little bit more, I think I'm going to utilize maybe my blue plus a little bit of white on my brush, and this is going to give me a lighter version of my tail feather, and I can get it to blend into my lavender, and that's going to make it look almost iridescent. So with this type of structure of a bird and this type of color that you're working with, you can utilize, I would say the lavender is like a cool color, and then this cobalt blue that we're using is, if there was ever to be a warm blue, it would be cobalt blue because it leans more towards the side of green. And utilizing both of those colors next to each other and kind of overlapping one another will give it almost like an iridescent type of look to it. So I would just kind of keep playing with these two, the lighter shade of blue, or my blue plus a little bit of white, and then my made up kind of lavender color with a little bit of white, and you can just kind of keep intermingling those two, getting this area to be the lightest. Maybe even you go more with just your magenta and white. If you want there to be an even brighter kind of spot, you can utilize more magenta plus white, and that's going to give you an even brighter kind of spot without just going white. So you can really, you know, have fun with the intensity of the brightness that you want to go for in this kind of area. Again, I'm going to leave back here a little bit darker. I will leave this area in through here a little bit darker, and then I'm getting this area to be the lightest, and then the back to be the lightest. And of course you can keep finagling with that all that you want, and then we are going to be utilizing the same brush for the next step. So once you've got your neck, your back, and your shoulders done, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the second step of our wings and our tail. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and the colors I'm using are white and blue. That might just be it. If I need any other colors, I'll let you know. So what I'm going to first do is I'm putting the white marks at the bottom of the wings. So on the tail part, I'm not going to put white marks on what I'm going to deem as the center feather. So I'm feeling like I want my center feather, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So the sixth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is going to be my center one right here. So I'm not going to put one on there. And then each one that I do, I'm just putting a white area at the tail feather. Now, and they're going to progressively get taller and taller as they reach the exterior of these feathers. So this one could go up maybe about 1.5 to 2 inches on this exterior one, and we'll do the same thing on the one on the other side. I have to hold my finger here. Okay, I don't have to hold, yes I do have to hold my finger until I do the next one, until I start on the other side, because I know my brain, sometimes it doesn't work very well. I'm leaving a tiny little space in between just for my own visual purposes. You don't need to do that. And I'm also leaving a tiny bit on the edge of the feather so I can see the edge of it. If your background is really, really light, you may want to do the same thing. Just leave a teeny tiny bit of that blue at the edge of it. That'll just give the viewer the information that that is the, there we go. Now I can move my finger, that is the end of the feather. Otherwise you might lose the edge in your background. So on this side here, I'm going to bring this one up a couple of inches, something like this. And I'm just painting the edges white, so there's no special brush stroke, and they're getting shorter. They're long, you know, they're taller towards the end pieces, or the ones that flank on the outside. So maybe these ones need to go a little bit higher. Hold on. So I can have that progression. So I need to make this one a little bit taller. There we go. So, because I wasn't getting enough of that progression as I was coming down towards the other one. So I had to make an on-the-fly adjustment so we would get the authentic look of the bird. There we go. And then on these ones in through here, I'm only going to have the little white edges going, I would say up to, you know, the tip ones don't have it. And these ones on the edges are pretty similar in height. They might get a little bit thicker as in the center wings, but, or the center feathers, but you know, again, you can utilize your best judgment when it comes to this. We're not making this look like a photograph. We're just giving a nice impression of this. Up where it comes and meets in through here, I'm going to hide a couple on the side of the bird in through here, because I saw that a lot, that they had a couple of these feathers with the white ones on the ends up in these little crevices in through here. So I'm going to do the same thing. And then on here, I think I'm going to have this one start maybe in through here and then just kind of work its way towards the interior of these feathers. And again, I'm not going for photorealism here, so if you're, I know that the blue jay's feathers are nearly perfect. I mean, they're so organized, they're so beautiful. But I definitely am going for a more just impressionistic kind of look to it. So I'm not going to stress over my feathers being totally perfect, but I am trying to give a good representation of where they all go and all that good stuff. They seem to have a second kind of tier of feathers with white tips in this area in through here. They're much smaller, so I'm going to go about halfway between here, and I'm going to give myself these little just little tips of what would be those other feathers, and I'm going to get them to go a lot tinier as they go towards the end of that little pattern. And then I'll do the same thing over on this side, but the bird's at a little different of an angle, so maybe these ones start, I would say, somewhere in through here. And then I'm just going to give a little section up and through here, and maybe these ones don't trail off like that side because we're looking at them at a different angle. But again, you could utilize your own thought process. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be picking up blue and white paint at the same time to get the flow of the vibrant colors in the feathers themselves. I'm going to start with this main one in through here. I don't need or want to paint over all of my other blue, all of that dark blue. I'm really just utilizing this blue and white to give me the highlighted kind of parts of these feathers. So I'm kind of just streaking down a couple of strokes in each feather and trying to get it to intermingle or talk to that main area that we have already painted up in through there. And I'm attempting to, you know, get this to be lighter than the base color that we put on earlier. So that's where the white is coming into play. It's going to provide me with that lighter tone to it. And then I will do the same thing on the wings themselves, only they've got a couple of different sections to them. So I have the little sections up in through here, so I'm going to I have that blue and white on my brush, so I'm just going down each of the little feathers and just kind of giving it a lighter blue and white kind of representation. And then I'm going to do the same thing on all of these feathers that we've kind of put in place in through here. So just blue and white. And again, don't feel that it has to be exactly as mine. We've got much more details that are going to be happening on here before I say anything else. As you're doing these, just kind of get them to go in the direction of the exterior part of the wing. They would all kind of be coming out of this central location, so they would take on that type of a curve as they're going towards the tip. So I am using a good amount of paint on my brush, which is going to keep it in a nice flowing fashion. But again, you don't need to color the whole thing. I'm leaving some dark gaps in between to provide me with that illusion of the three-dimensional aspect of these wings. And I'm going to go ahead and do this all in through here. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So blue and white, and just making sure I've got this represented in through here. And from one side to the next, they don't have to be exactly the same tone. Maybe this is a little bit more, you know, shadowed on this side. Maybe this is catching the sun a little bit more. So don't feel that it has to be, you know, just as bright on one side as it is on the other. And then we're going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this layer of your feathers and your feathers on your tail and your wings done, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first layer of our cherry blossoms. So I'm going to be using a medium brush. The colors I'm using are red, magenta, white, maybe a little yellow too, but I'll let you know if I use that color. So these cherry blossoms can be in a wide variety of colors, going anywhere from white to I think all the way to red, and anywhere in between. So you could make yours as vibrant or as subtle or as pink or as red or as white as you want to. So I'm going to have some that are just little tiny blossoms that haven't even opened yet, and then I'll have a couple that are open and showing their beautiful flower face. So I'm going to start with red and pink, or red, magenta, and white on my brush at the same time. And I'm going to show you a couple of different shapes to these, and then you can certainly modify yours however you want or put as many in as you want. So if I want to do a little blossom that is just kind of closed and not open yet, just going to do something like that. If I want to do one that looks like it's kind of from the side, I can kind of cup it at the bottom, and I'm using a lot of paint on my brush, so this way these colors, I will have a variety of the tones within them. So that's going to make it look more three-dimensional without really doing much to it. So that's one that would look like it's kind of from the side. If I want one that looks like it's kind of open, I'll utilize maybe this space in through here. So I'm using a ton of paint, green or magenta, red, and white. Maybe this one's got this one coming up here. They've got these beautiful, well, they're pretty delicate type of petals, but again, they come in a wide variety of species, I guess. So you can certainly make yours altered whatever way that you want. We're going to do a little center detail to the ones that we have in an open way. So know that we're going to have a little bit more detail. So those are kind of the three different shapes that I would put. So if I want to have some good dimensional aspect to it, I can put a bunch of little blossoms coming out over, you know, just hanging out over the edge, like maybe they are peeking out from the other side. Maybe I've got one, you know, maybe a little bit bigger one coming out in through here. You can have them overlapping each other. They don't have to just be at the end of every branch. You can use a little bit of yellow too. So if you wanted that to be like a nice peachy look, you could do red, yellow, and white. And I'll do one up here so you can kind of see what maybe a little peachy one would look like. I need a little bit more white on my brush. And, you know, so you could certainly have different varieties of the tonal value that you want or the color that you want. Maybe this one's going to be a little bit more open. And again, I'm switching from the magenta, red, yellow, and white. Maybe I'll have a nice big one up in through here. Maybe this one kind of comes off of my canvas a little bit. I think I'm going to have that one kind of having some detail going up and out. Maybe I'll have some little blossoms coming, the little tiny ones that haven't really opened all the way. And maybe I'll have a nice big open one in through here. So again, have fun with where you want these and if you want them open or closed. And again, we will be putting much more detail on them later, but sometimes all you got to do is make a little polka dot or, you know, add a little, you know, dark area here or there, and that's going to give you the illusion of a small blossom in there. It doesn't always have to be super organized. You don't have to think about every single one. Sometimes when you don't think about it, sometimes that's when the most beautiful flowers happen, because we're not giving it too much thought. And, you know, Mother Nature will take over on our brush sometimes and make it look even more beautiful than we had ever hoped it could be. So I'm just kind of letting fly whatever's gonna fly. And you can see I've got lots of different tones in here with my magenta and my red and my yellow and my white, and I'm using a good amount of paint, so this way I can have those almost, you know, on the fly highlights and shadows. And then we are going to be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So once you've got all of your beautiful blossoms in here, again, just have fun with it. They can go in front of your branches, they can go behind your branches. Just enjoy the process. And then we're going to use our small brush for the next step. So you can just put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our flower blossoms. I'm using my small brush. You could really use a combination of your small or your medium brush, wherever your comfort zone is. But I do want to kind of recommend that you have your first layer of your blossoms dry before you do this step, because we're going to be doing some small detail and it'll be much easier if it's on the drier side. I might have a couple of little wet spots, but I have enough that'll work. So when I was looking at these trees, flowering trees, I noticed that there was where the flower comes out, these little stems, I saw a lot of red on those little stems. So I'm going to be using in this whole process red, brown, black, and I might use a little bit of white too. But I'm going to start right now with some red and some brown on my brush. And I want to kind of accentuate a little bit of red in some of the stems as they're coming out of the flower or they're meeting the flower. And then I can use red and brown and or red, brown, and black. If I think I'm going to use a little bit of black so it looks a little darker, to get the bottom portion where the bud kind of opens up. Some of them have these little pieces at the bottom. So I'm just going to give myself the information of that happening if I can see the bottom of the flower. So I can see it on both of these two. So I'm going to put some red in my stem, and you can even put some red on the branch too. That would totally work. And then as it comes underneath the flower, red, black, and brown are my color combinations. I can kind of just bring this up along the sides, maybe something like this, kick it out a little bit, and then put a little bit maybe up in the center, maybe a touch more blacks. Give it a little bit more contrast. Sometimes when we're doing these on the fly little dimensional steps, if it's doesn't have enough contrast in it, you're not really going to be able to see the difference in the object next to it. So you want to make sure that there's enough contrast in what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just going to look like a solid extension of that first piece, and it won't give it enough dimension. So if you need more contrast, just add a little bit more black or a little bit more red or something that will help to enhance that contrasting element to it. And then as I come in through these ones, it looks like I feel like I could have a little bottom to this one. So I'm definitely going to add a little cup of sorts underneath this one, and then just maybe pull it up. And again, I'm right now just kind of alternating my red, brown, and black to get these little details on here. I'm going to definitely bring in some dark little red streaks as they're meeting those blossoms. And the more information you can put in there, the more realistic it's going to look. But again, it doesn't have to be 100%. Everything has to be perfect. You just want to give the impression. Sometimes just adding a little bit of detail will give you the impression of the realistic nature to it. So as I come towards the ones where I can see the center of them, what I found on the ones I was looking at was they had a nice deep red center to them. So I just wiped my brush off on my paper towel. I'm bringing in red, and maybe if your flower's dark, you can put a little bit of brown, but just a little bit of red is gonna take me into that realm in the middle of these. And then they have these little sprouts that come out of them. So black and brown is what I'm going to use on my small brush for my little sprouts. And they're just going to come up from the center, just these little tiny curved lines coming up from the center. Hold on, just reloading my brush with a little bit of watered down black paint so I can get these little tiny lines. And they're just almost like these little tiny pieces of grass, I guess. I know that's not the right word. Stamens, maybe, is the right word, coming out of the center. And if you feel that just black is the color for you, then just use black. I'm just doing a whole bunch of kind of curved little vertical lines with some little polka dots on the end of them. That's going to give you the illusion of what I was finding in these flowers. And you can, this one I don't feel like I would totally see a lot of the center, but I feel like I would see a whole bunch of these little things coming out of the center. So I'm going to put that over in through here, and I'm just getting them to come out in these different directions, and then just putting these little polka dots on the top of them. That looks cute. I think maybe I would see maybe something coming out of over here. So I'm just going to put a couple of them coming out of over here with a couple of little polka dots. And again, I'm just looking to give it the impression of the actual flower. I think I want a little bit more red in my stems that are meeting their way. Ooh, I think I want a little bit of darkness underneath this one. Give this one that little, I don't know if they're leaves or what they are underneath as they are starting to grow, but we're going to put some red in those branches because I like the red in the branches. It makes my painter eye happy. And then I just got to tackle these little guys up here. So red and brown and black wherever I feel I can see the where it's coming out of the actual branch itself. And maybe that one needs a little more black. There we go, so we can see it. I feel like I've got quite a few of these. This is fun. I like doing these bottom pieces there. They seem to bring the little blossom to life in a really easy way, just putting these little bits of information at the bottom of them. And that's the fun part about it. Once you can establish the characteristics of a particular flower or tree or blossoming anything, once you kind of understand the characteristics of it, like there's red on the stem that it's growing from, you can on the fly just approach it in a impressionistic type of way, and you don't need to look at that photograph anymore. You know, wherever I see that part coming out of the stem, oh, I can just add a little bit of darkness, and it's got that little cup to it, and you can just, that's how you can learn how to paint a particular subject without having to always look at a photo reference for it. So now I'm going to add the little centers of the ones that up here that I can see. I feel like I can see this one maybe, and maybe a little bit on this one. That one I think would just kind of be in an upward motion, like we're seeing the side of it. So then I'm going to add some of these little fun hairy things coming out of the center, and with my little polka dots on the end to give it the illusion. This one I think would have some coming out. So again, just a little bit of black paint, black and or brown, wherever your painting is taking you, and then maybe a couple out of here. And then we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your flowers all nice and full and complete here, and you make any little tweaks on them that you want, you can put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our feathers. So that's going to be the feathers on your tail and on your wings. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are definitely black, probably blue and white, and I might go into a little brown. But we're going to start with black, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to use my medium brush. I am going to be using my black to start in a watered down kind of state. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to add a couple of drops of water to a little bit of my black paint. What this is going to do is this is going to give me a more fluid control over where I put these black marks, and I will be able to keep my brush nice and pointy throughout the process, and I won't have to push hard, so I can really kind of control the marks that I want to make. And I do know that when I do this, my brush might get out of control, and so might yours, and you might end up with a little bit wider lines from here and there time to time. If that happens, don't panic. Just let it happen and then let it dry if you need to, and then you can paint over it or thin it out with your bird feather colors, the blue and stuff. But I'll talk you through that because I'm sure it's going to happen to me. So where I'm going to first start is on the tail part. I have designated this as the main or the center tail feather. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize that watered down paint, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of an outline around this right hand side of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue with my black paint, and I'm going to do like a faint kind of center stripe down the middle of it. And then I'm going to give myself black horizontal, well, they're going to be diagonal to you, but the horizontal on the tail feather itself. And I'm going to do them maybe about every inch or so away from each other. And you can kind of split them in that center line if you wanted to, and I'm just going to get them to trail off to about in this direction in through here. So something like this. And again, I'm not really pressing my brush too hard, but I want them to just look like they all belong together, something like that. And then we're going to follow that pattern throughout the left and the right hand side, only all of these feathers over here only get it on one side. So what I'm going to do is I am using that watered down black paint to give myself a little bit of an outline on the right hand side of these feathers in through here. And I don't need it to go all the way up the bird or up to the back of the bird. I'm just really looking for it to give me a little bit of separation between these two feathers. And then I can utilize my black and or my black and blue and give myself a little bit of a marking over on the right side. Oops, now we're going to have another one right in through here. See, there we go. That was where my brush got away from me. And then I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a marking. And you might find that like every one that you go up is going to be one less because these marks are larger or taller. So I'm just going to kind of freestyle here and give myself a little bit of a mark coming up in through here. This one I think would go something like this. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, and they just kind of trail off into Never Never Land on the other side. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on these ones. So I will give it a little bit of an outline on the left side of that wing, You can even put it in between the, see, that's where my brush got away from me right there. Just wipe it away with your finger if you can. And then I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little bit of a mark like this. So I'm trying to follow the kind of pattern of that center one. And if you feel yourself pushing your brush too hard, that means you don't have enough paint on your brush. So just kind of reload your brush, and you wouldn't always see every single feather or the detail on every feather. Like this one might be hiding a little bit more behind the other one. So if you don't feel like you would see that feather, then don't put a mark on it. You don't need to put marks on every single one of them. And then if you felt like you wanted to enhance any of those wings with lighter pieces or anything, you could certainly go back into your lighter colors. So I'm going to do a similar process to these wings in through here. So I'm using my watered down black paint. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a kind of faint separating line between the two wings, something like this. And I'm just kind of bringing it down in a real kind of carefree paint stroke. Except for that one where I just pressed really hard. And then when I get to these ones in through here, I feel like these ones would have a little bit more shadow between them. So I can get a little bit more aggressive in the areas that I feel might have a little bit more shadow. So when you do something like that, if you want to, just pick up a little bit more blue, or you could even go with a little bit of maybe gray, like black and white on your brush at the same time, wherever you feel like it would dictate a darker color or, you know, a deeper tone. You could certainly go right ahead and do that. And if you feel like you went too much, you can always just bring back some of your blue and white. So you can just kind of keep tweaking it until you get it into that realm where you feel that it's nice and three-dimensional. And on these wings, I don't need those vertical or those little sideways markings as much. I'm just going to be doing them on the feathers that have the little white tips to them. So you can do your watered down black, and I'm going to be doing this kind of in from the black line over to the right with a little bit of a curve on my brush, maybe 2 or 3 going up. So a little flick of my wrist is going to give me this little mark on these ones. And you can see I'm trying to keep them in a similar pattern to one another. So wherever, you know, we're doing 3 on each, and then as it kind of goes here, it just kind of trails off into the distance. I can put some little markings in through these guys and through here. So I'm not going to necessarily do the separating line, but I am going to give them a sense of these little, maybe a couple little black markings going up. So maybe 2 or 3 little, almost just like polka dots on that right hand side of each one. And again, this is impressionistic. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just kind of giving it the illusion of what I perceive this to be. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on the left hand side. So I'm going to get these wings to separate with this little bit of a black line, and I'm giving mine a little bit of a curve too, just to make it look on the natural side, a natural progression out into those wings over on the side. Oops, that went outside my area a little bit. And then once I get this done, then I can put the little black markings on it. So something like this. And again, I feel up and through here, I would have a little bit more of a shadow, so I can get a little bit more aggressive with those darker tones, even in through here. So again, you go with where your comfort zone is. I know that when these, especially these tips, when they are in, they definitely have more of a grayish tone to the underside of them, but you know, no photorealism in these quick classes. None is allowed. We just go with a fun interpretation. So then I'm going to go ahead and make my little black marks from the left side over to the right side. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then maybe these ones might need a 4th one. We might be able to see more of these ones, but again, you can, however many you feel that you want on yours, 3 or 4 will work just fine. And then once I've got this on here, I think I'm going to come back with, and then I just fade them off into the distance. I'm gonna wash my brush. I'm gonna put a tiny additional detail onto these feathers because I feel like they need a little oomph, a little punch in the center area. So I'm just washing and drying my brush, and I'm gonna put a little bit lighter version of my blue. So I'm going blue and white. And if you wanted like a third iridescent kind of color to it, or something that's going to shimmer a little bit more, you can make like a greenish blue by just adding a tiny bit of yellow into your blue and white mixture. And that's going to give you another tone of blue that will allow you to get even more definition in here. So I just made like a little bit of a light greenish blue, and I can just add these little pops of this additional highlight in between some of these feathers. If I felt like I wanted a little bit more punch, especially in this tail feather, I could certainly just come in like I just did with that third tone and just give myself that bit of more of an iridescent kind of value into that blue. I know it'll dry a little bit darker, but just getting, having those little additional pops of color are going to give you more dimension on those wings. And of course, you can certainly tweak yours and keep adding to it all you want. Just enjoy the process. Step back from it if you want to add more information to it. The sky's the limit. You just make it into whatever beautiful blue jay that you would like. And then we have one tiny little step left to go, and it's going to be with your small brush. So once you've got your beautiful bird on here, you've got all of your colors the way that you want them to be, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the last step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I normally sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right corner. I think I'll sign mine at the bottom left. I was debating there, but I'm gonna sign in the bottom left. I'm using my small brush. I'm using black paint. I typically just sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or with the date or with a symbol or whatever you want your identifying mark to be. It's your painting. You sign it however you would like. That is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a beautiful blue jay, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.